Imagine you're at home watching television on an ordinary night, and suddenly a man appears on screen with a revolver in his hand. He points it at his own head and pulls the trigger. This isn't a movie or a series. It was broadcast live in front of millions of viewers. It was a dangerous stunt designed by one of the most brilliant and controversial mentalists in the United Kingdom. Today, I'm going to tell you how Derren Brown played Russian roulette in real life. Derren Brown is not a common illusionist. Despite having played with cards and rabbits, he is above all a psychological mentalist. To create his shows, he combines knowledge of hypnosis, psychology, body language, suggestion, and social manipulation. Among his most famous tricks is the time he convinced a group of strangers to rob a bank. These were ordinary people who, through psychological conditioning, were driven to the point of being willing to commit an armed robbery without receiving anything in return, or the time he made a man believe for weeks that he had survived the apocalypse. It was all an elaborate setup with actors, abandoned hospitals, and even fake government broadcasts. And if he was able to do that with strangers, what would happen if this time the person at risk was himself? On October 5, 2003, Derren performed one of the boldest feats anyone could attempt on live television. For this occasion, he launched an online call to recruit volunteers for the next episode of his program, in which they would play Russian roulette. 12,000 people applied to the form, of which only 100 were meticulously chosen by Derren and his team to undergo a series of tests. Almost the entire 50-minute episode consists of filtering and eliminating the participants he considered less competent for the final test. The last individual left standing had the obligation to load the revolver with a single bullet and sit to witness firsthand what could potentially turn into a real death on live television. When the number of candidates was reduced to only 5, they were taken to a rural area, an isolated barn on the island of Jersey, near the border with France. The program had to finish filming there because British firearm laws are extremely strict. In England, possessing, carrying, or using real weapons without specific licenses is prohibited, and simulating Russian roulette with a real gun would have been completely illegal on British soil. The 5 participants lived there for several days, underwent another round of aptitude tests, and were under constant 24-hour observation until the winner was finally chosen. The chosen one was James. He wasn't an actor or a stooge. He was simply someone Derren Brown, for some reason, considered ideal. James's role was no small matter. He had to place a single bullet into one of the 6 chambers of the revolver, spin the cylinder, and hand it over. A decision carrying enormous moral and psychological weight. He, in front of the cameras, would be the only direct witness of the act, no matter what happened. They gathered at a table inside a set built in the barn. To add credibility, a collaborator brought the ammunition and tested the revolver by firing into a sandbag. Derren then asked everyone to leave the room for safety reasons, except James, who proceeded to load the single bullet into the cylinder marked with numbers from 1 to 6, written by hand. Then James sat behind a bulletproof glass panel to protect him in case of an accident, and finally, he was asked to count out loud from 1 to 6. Derren began with number 3 and followed the sequence. The gun clicked, empty. He continued, another empty chamber. Now only 3 attempts remained, and one of them held the bullet. He knew there was a 33% chance that this would go terribly wrong. He took his time, until once again, Derren emerged unscathed from a test that kept more than 3.3 million viewers tense in their homes, convinced they were about to see a man die on live television. And as always, with something so disruptive, criticism came quickly. Thousands of users flooded the internet the next day with theories and hypotheses trying to uncover the truth behind the act. The most widespread theory was that the ammunition was blank, like those used in film productions. Even the Jersey police had to step in and support this explanation to calm the wave of furious people who were outraged that authorities had allowed such an irresponsible stunt. But it's curious, because blanks at such short distances can still be harmful. Actors have died from close-range blank fire. Brandon Lee died on set when a poorly handled blank round struck him in the chest during a scene. Or even worse, the case of actor Jean-Eric Hexum, who while joking behind the scenes, unaware of the real danger, pressed a blank-loaded gun to his temple and pulled the trigger. Though it contained no projectiles, the explosion at such close range fractured his skull and caused a fatal brain hemorrhage. Both cases were ruled accidents, but they show that even a fake bullet can be deadly under certain circumstances. Whatever the case with Derren Brown, there are hundreds of other theories and suspicions, but one must not forget that he is a showman, and he achieved his goal of keeping millions on the edge of their seats for several minutes, convinced they were about to witness a real death on television. And his art is not risk, it is control. Absolute control of the mind, even yours. Perhaps you're wondering why, 20 years later, something that generated such high ratings has never been repeated on television. And the answer is simple, because it can't be. After the broadcast, the program received more than 160 formal complaints. Some countries, like Germany, censored or outright banned its airing. Many accused the channel of going too far. And we're talking about Channel 4, one of the most provocative broadcasters in all of England. In the past, they had aired a real autopsy on another program, and even broadcast a documentary with an extremely graphic abortion. But with Derren Brown, they felt they had crossed a dangerous line, because it's one thing to show something explicitly and quite another to toy with the possibility of someone dying live. Since then, the channel has toned down, and so has the industry in general. And that's what makes this trick so special. It is unique and unrepeatable. And if you thought what Derren Brown did on live television was shocking, the next story takes fear to an entirely different level. In 2002, two snipers turned Washington, D.C. into a war zone. Hidden in the trunk of a car, they shot 17 people at random, paralyzing the nation with fear for 23 days. Schools went into lockdown, parents ducked while pumping gas, and no one felt safe. This full-length documentary tells the true story of the D.C. sniper attacks, how John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvos carried out their deadly mission, how the FBI and local police raced to stop them, and how one single fingerprint brought it all to an end.